am selling tickets. If you text me after the show, I can get you a deal. And by the way, did you say we're streaming online at youtube.com?
I did. I forgot to say that.
News.
Thank you.
And by the way, at 1 o'clock today, we will carry live the hearings, the January 6th hearings, day 4. And if you come to the library, we have monitors here you can watch. Just one comment about that, and we'll talk about that a little later in the show. While a lot of people are focused on the Speaker of the House, the Republican Speaker of the House in Arizona is going to testify. The Republican Secretary of State from Georgia, Raffensperger, he was the one who got the call, can you find me 11,000 votes? The woman I really want to hear from is this one, Drea Moss. Have you heard about this? Trump calls her out saying she was involved in some election fraud. She's an election worker. Her mother and she have to go into hiding because of death threats they get. Election workers doing their job, just showing what a sadistic bully this guy is.
Are all over the place. You had Adam Kinzinger, who's on the panel, Republican on the panel, threatening his 5-month-old?
Letter to his house. His 5-month-old, his wife, and himself.
Executed?
With death, with execution.
Yeah, and it was a local letter, apparently, as well.
In any case,
people are off the rails.
That's 1 o'clock. We'll do a little preview shortly before on the show. But first, I'm sure you've seen the latest report on the MBTA is striking a lax safety culture. And that's a quote at the T. Maintenance has been delayed, affecting the system's safety. Operators are working extremely long days. A lot of them haven't received proper training. It's essentially deja vu all over again. We were here in 2009. Former Hancock CEO David D'Alessandro was on our show about this at the time, or at the other station, issued a safety report for Governor Patrick. In 2019, the former U.S. Secretary of Transportation, Ray LaHood, issued a report for Governor Baker with the same headlines. The most recent one, safety is not a priority. Multiple investigations over 2 administrations have found the T to be a failing system. Now that, to me, is comforting. So what we want to know,
Jim,
is what are riders, wait a second, going to do? Are we going to be stuck behind the wheels of our gas-guzzling cars forever, sitting on crumbling roads and bridges? We'll get to that in a minute. Wishing we had a truly functioning, safe public transit system. The number to text or call is 877-301-8970. One other note, by the way.
What?
If you're about to get on the red line and you're understandably nervous, if you call in ahead of time, Marjorie will give you last rights. As a precaution, just to be safe.
That's right.
I'm sorry I interrupted you. What are you going to say?
I was going to say, I think we have to look on the bright side here.
What is that?
Well, you said that multiple investigations over 2 administrations have found the T to be a failing system.
That is correct. I did say that.
We have to be upbeat about this. Mm-hmm. It is not a failed system.
No, that's a very good point.
It's still hanging on by a thread. I'd love to hear from people that ride the T all the time. I'd love to hear from people that are riding the T today on the new Saturday service on everything but the Green Line, apparently, where the trains are coming more slowly. How do you feel about the MBTA?
You should explain that more. For those who are not regular T riders, explain almost overnight, understandably, because of this report.
That's right.
The T had to change their weekday service schedule.
That's right. That's right. They have decided they're going to have slower trains on the orange line, on the red line, and on the blue line.
Not slower trains.
Well, the
fewer
trains are going to come less frequently,
right.
Put it that way. Instead of coming every few, I don't have this thing in front of me, it's every few minutes, it's going to be longer. Usually on weekdays, the trains come much more quickly because people are getting to work, so they'll come every few minutes, and you're going to have to wait longer now for the trains. The Green Line is still going strong. I'm happy about that because I live a half a block from the Green Line. Good. And, I feel good on the Green Line. I'm not really that worried on the Green Line. Governor Dukakis used to come in on the Green Line,
I know.
I did used to wonder, though, if anybody drives the Green Line a lot, forever and a day, when you come into the Boylston Street stop, there's this screeching sound. It sounds like the wheels are just rubbing right against the metal, and it's this horrible sound. And apparently, they're unable to fix that. I don't understand that, Jim. Wouldn't you think a little WD-40 might be the solution to why it always screeches at the Boylston Street station?
That's an excellent point. And by the way, you asked that. Every T person who's ever been on the show, you've asked that question.
Yeah, and they say you can't fix it.
Not to worry.
But isn't it odd?
And by the way, not to worry that we can't afford to fix the Sagamore Bridge or rebuild it anymore, because the original cost, does this sound big dig like? $1 billion when it was approved for the 2 bridges. Now it's already up to $3 or $4 billion.
Well, you have the sense that in the United States of America, I know we've had the infrastructure bill, and that's going to help some.
Yeah.
But But I think in the United States of America, we've basically decided that we're through with maintenance. That's the thing. We're just going to wait till things completely fall apart, and then we're going to start from scratch. I mean, it's like anything else. Your house, your car, you got to do the tune-ups, right? We've stopped doing the tune-ups.
Well, I mean, the solution, I know you're a bit of an alarmist, the solution is just stay home. 877-301-8970. In all seriousness, by the way, a lax safety culture at the T. Can I rail about one more thing? Joan Vanocchi really does a number, I think appropriately, on Governor Baker, Mr. Expert Manager.
Right.
Where have you been through all this thing? Jim Rooney, the head of the Boston Chamber, said the other day, too focused on inputs, the governor is not focused enough on results. But another entity I want to call out, I'm going to try not to get totally out of control today because I'm also previewing this Trump hearing, this January 6th hearing about Trump. I'm really in a frenzy. The legislature is talking about having oversight hearings. And if I were a legislative leader, you know what I would do today? I'd have a press conference and apologize to the people that the Federal Transportation Agency, or whatever the FTA stands for, had to do my job. Why is the FTA, what's the T stand for? Transportation
Authority.
Or transit or something.
Yeah.
Why does the federal agency have to do the oversight to conclude their problems at the T instead of the damn legislature doing the oversight with hearings and letting us know beforehand? I mean, it's really a mess all around.
What I thought you were going to rant and rave
What's
about
that?
was the spokesperson for the T, Joe
we did
Pesatoro.
this
I'm
the
sure
other day.
I'm sure he's a great guy.
I'm sure he's
but
a great guy, yeah.
T riders are concerned about these things. I mean, the federal agency told the T to get its tracks in a good state of repair.
What do you say about that?
Joe Pesatoro, spokesman, declined to comment on the status of track
Well, that's
maintenance.
understandable.
You're not entitled to know what kind of shape the tracks are in. The federal agency told the T to ensure that no employees' certifications have lapsed. Apparently, lots of them have lapsed, but Joe Pesatoro
What do you say about that, Pesatoro?
declined to say how
They
many
did.
operators, if any, had lapsed certifications. And the FDA told the T to put in protections to prevent safety incidents at rail yards.
What did Pesatoro
and once
say about
again,
that?
Joe Pesatoro declined to say how many safety incidents have occurred at the agency's rail yards so far this year. We in Massachusetts rant and rave a lot about how great we are here, supposedly, and how, other states are disgraces. People don't like Florida, at least some people, they don't like it because of this crackdown on gay people and trans people and stuff. But you know what? In Florida, if you're a reporter and you're trying to find something out, you can find it out in Florida. We are so closed up in the state of Massachusetts. It's really hard to know what the governor's doing or what the legislature is doing, or judges are doing for that matter, because we are the public, they don't really need to know any of this stuff kind of state.
We're the only state in the country, thanks to the great reporting of Todd Wallach, who used to be at the Boston Globe, the only state in the country where the legislature, every branch of government, believes it is not subject to open meeting laws. 877-301-8970. But to get back to the topic at hand, what's your reaction to this federal report and the fact, because the T wasn't policing itself adequately, or obviously doing something wrong, that weekday service, which is pretty critical to working people in particular, is now on a weekend, meaning less frequent schedule. By the way, that's a really big deal. It's not just a line, that there are fewer cars coming at greater distance.
Means you're going to be late for work, and the train's going to be much
or
more
have
crowded.
to leave earlier, or some
yeah,
such thing.
and you're going to be
that.
right next to people, and people are still nervous about COVID. Robert from Lowell, what do you think, Robert?
Hey, Robert, welcome.
Hey, good morning. Thank you for taking my call. First of all, Marjorie, yesterday, I just had to say you heaped a little bit of insult on Jesuits and Jesuit universities when you claimed Notre Dame was in our family.
Oh, they're they're Holy Cross. You're right. They're the fathers of the Holy Cross. There are some Jesuits there, but you're right, Robert. It's not like Boston College.
Anyway, about the Georgetown Fordham.
Georgetown and Fordham. That's right.
Yeah. I use the T frequently, the commuter rail from Lowell to North Station. Then I have the option of Orange or Green Line. And I can tell you, in the morning, in the rush hour, it's critical. And to think that they're going to Saturday service, I'm glad I won't be working too much this summer. But it's really, this is just an indictment of the entire governmental system in Massachusetts. I mean, I like Charlie Baker, I guess, but, he's had 8 years. And our legislature, I understand they're going to have a hearing. I made a comment this morning on a message board. We were hungry and naked, and you held a hearing. I mean, this is
Well, at least they're holding a hearing, Robert, if you know
That's
what I
a
mean.
good. That's a good Catholic line, Robert.
It sure is. So whatever happened to proactivity, Jim? Come on. You're
I'm with
a
you.
proactive
I'm totally
person.
with you.
Yeah.
Hey,
No.
Robert, thank you for the call. By the way, since he mentioned your comments about the Catholic Church, I said we should say as an update, we invited Bishop McManus from Worcester on the show, and the diocese on his behalf rejected, declined, and sent us the same statement they had given to the Boston Globe.
Right, but he was right. I shouldn't have said Jesuits
Whatever.
run Notre Dame. They're
Eight-
there, but it's run by a different order.
877-301-8097. If anybody, by the way, is using the T since the schedules changed in the last, I guess, 24 hours, we'd love to hear what impact that has on your life. And I think the first caller made a really good point.
What?
It is an indictment of government across the board here. It's not about a Republican governor alone. It's about a Democratic legislature that hasn't done its job in terms of oversight. It's really disgraceful that it had to come to waiting for a federal agency to call us out.
Now, I want to point out that we have a bit of a debate over the Boylston Street screech or
What-
squeal, whatever you want
what's
to
the
call it.
debate?
Well, Benjamin in Brighton says it's the wheels vibrating like a violin string as the T rounds one of the sharpest curves
cares?
on any railroad in North America. And Zoe, one of our staff, says, as a counterpoint to the Boylston screech, I went to Emerson right there. I send sound for the Boylston screech to my college friends who no longer live in Boston whenever I take the Green Line downtown. They are very nostalgic and they miss the sound of the Boylston screech.
Oh, it's sad.
So there you go.
877-301-8097. Did you read Benjamin in Brighton?
I just did
Oh, you did?
Benjamin in Brighton. He was talking about the squeal.
No. He also sent another one.
Oh,
he
sorry.
says he reached out to his state senator, Will Brownsberger, about the outrageous service on the T, and his initial response was, quote, "We'll get through this together." So, yeah, Jim, they are on it. 877-301-8097. You know what the problem is in this state? Why are people not angrier about things promised them that are not getting delivered? Why are people not angry? And apparently they are not. We're seeing more humor, pretty good humor, I should say, than anger. If you depend upon the T, or if you are driving now but want to depend upon the T, we've had that discussion ad nauseum for years, why are you not angry that elected officials have let you down on a critical environmental and work-related
It's kind
service?
of everything. You look at the debris and the horrible overgrowth on the side of the highways. You look at how the lines aren't drawn clearly, so that sometimes if it's raining heavily or it's nighttime, you can't see the lines in the middle of the road. We talk endlessly about the commuter rail, all the problems they've had with the commuter rail. It's kind of, like I said, it's sort of like the United States of America. And you always are surprised when you go someplace else. I'm not the world traveler that Jim is, but I did
am
get
a
a
world
chance
traveler, it's
to
true.
go to Greece.
I haven't been on a plane
Greece,
in 3 years, by the way.
Oh, well, the pandemic. But Greece was like going broke. Maybe
Yeah.
about like 5 years ago, they were actually going broke. And you land in the airport there, and it makes Logan Airport look like something from 1945. You get on the subway systems in other countries. I know that they're after World War II, and so they're newer and all that than they are in New York or they are in Boston. But is that going to be our excuse
Forget
forever?
another country, go to Washington.
Go to Washington.
Look at the, no, of course.
Well, that's newer too.
That is newer,
That
too.
is newer too. In San Francisco, they're newer too. What's older, Boston or New York? They're both pretty old.
I don't know.
They're both pretty old. But
Wait,
what is that?
are we not the first subway system in
I
the
don't know.
country?
But the point is, there's a lot of houses that are really old around Boston. They're not all falling apart. Alan from
That's an
Princeton.
excellent point,
Thank
actually.
you, Jim. Alan from Princeton. What do you think?
Hey, Alan, what's going on?
Hey, I called you guys a couple weeks ago talking about a bad experience I had down in with people shooting up and stuff down the D. No people working for the MBTA in the station.
Oh goodness.
I just went out to Vancouver last week, and they have an automated train system.
Hello?
Oh, I think we lost Alan
We
from
went to
Princeton.
Vancouver. They have an automated something. Alan,
think-
call us
59.
back.
Oh,
there
you're
you
back.
are.
You're
Sorry.
back. We lost you.
Okay, we heard you.
Right.
An
Yeah.
automated what?
Automated train system from the airport to downtown. It's about the same distance as from Newton down to the airport
Yeah.
in Boston.
Yeah.
And it cost me $9 for an automated trip, completely computer controlled, no attendance needed.
Oh, we're having
Alan,
a
we
hard
get a
time,
bad
Alan.
connection.
Sorry. Thanks for the call.
Yeah,
But,
I'm
you
really
know, in
sorry.
all fairness, I want to be fair here. He mentioned this automatic train where you don't need any staff. We had that runaway train on the Red Line years ago that went, was on
God.
its way. There was no conductor,
yeah,
right?
That was
Is
great.
that what it was?
So the conductor gets off the train to pull. He's not supposed to do this, but he gets off the train to pull some lever to let the train continue when he jury rigs the brakes or something like that, but he didn't apparently jury rig them correctly, right? So their people are coming in from Braintree toward Boston, but they're supposed to stop, I think, at the stop
Quincy,
by the I
or
don't know if it was
JFK?
Quincy or JFK, whatever.
Yeah.
Wherever they're supposed to stop.
Yeah.
They don't stop. They just kind of keep right on through, and then the passengers notice that there is no driver on the
That's a
train.
problem. That really is a
The
problem.
train. Can you imagine? Talking about a 19th century breakdown. But the wonderful thing was, we must say, in that case, the driver did, at the risk of getting in a lot of trouble, because I'm sure he was in a lot of trouble for jury rigging the brake system, called ahead, and they managed to move all the trains. Said, don't stop.
very
All the
nice.
trains ahead of it. Keep going, keep going, keep going, because there's a runaway train behind you. We don't want it to close in. Imagine sitting in the T and seeing a train getting closer and closer from behind you with no driver in the front.
You
Oh
know,
my God.
We're semi-making light of this, but you know what I'm just realizing? We mentioned
What?
this the other day. Remember when Mr. Laline was dragged to his death a few weeks ago?
Yeah, it was horrible.
And there was a hearing of the safety subcommittee of the T, whatever the hell board it is. They did not ask one single question of their staff at the first meeting after this gentleman was dragged to his death about the safety issues. Not one single question.
I mean, I don't get it, Jim. It's inexplicable. Several people are pointing out that Alan and Rosendale is one of them. It blows his mind that the MBTA has reduced service on all the lines that service low-income patrons, but the Green Line
that is
serving
a
Newton
really,
and Brookline
really good point.
is not affected. You are absolutely right, Alan. The D line, by the way, the reservoir train that goes to Newton, that's the fastest and that's the nicest of them all. You ever ride that one, Jim? It's very pretty. The B line is not so good. C line is all right. The D line, I would say, is as good as it gets on the MBTA. Anyway, we're talking about the fact that the MBTA it basically is considered unsafe at the federal level. And what are we doing about it around
Well, they
here?
didn't say, we should be fair, they didn't say unsafe. This is a lax safety
Okay.
culture.
Well,
That's
okay.
troubling enough.
You call it a lax safety culture. I would call it not
Unsafe.
safe. Yeah,
No problem.
I would
Okay.
call it that. But anyway, we're going to keep talking about this for a little while longer. You're listening to Boston Public Radio. We are broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library.
It was a full-blown insurrection.
I'm hearing reports that Pence caved. I'm telling you, if Pence caved, we're going to drag through the streets.
How did we get there?
Donald Trump wanted Mike Pence to do something no other vice president has ever done.
President Trump said I had the right to overturn the election. President Trump is wrong.
Join us this afternoon for our continuing coverage of the January 6th committee hearings, right here on GBH 89.7, online at gbhnews.org.
Funding for our programs comes from you and Franciscan Children's. As we face a kids' mental health emergency in the U.S., Franciscan Children's provides help for your entire family by phone, online, or in a parental support group. Learn more at franciscanchildrens.org. And Lexus Broadway in Boston, presenting Wicked, returning to the Citizens Bank Opera House June 8th through July 24th. Ticket information and availability online at lexusbroadwayinboston.com.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Jim Brady and Marge Regan. We're live from the Boston Public Library, streaming online at youtube.com/GBH News, and we will move to coverage, gavel-to-gavel coverage of the January 6th hearing day 4 at 1 o'clock. Paul in Braintree says, when the T announced they were slowing down the schedule during the week, it reminded me of my Dorothy Parker bon mot when told that Calvin Coolidge had died. She said, how can you tell? That's a very good... We're talking
couple more good
we're
ones.
talking about the federal agency's conclusion that there's a lax safety culture at the T, a lot of problems that need fixing, and we're asking how it's affecting your perspective in terms of getting out of your car and riding the T, or if you ride the T already. Here's a good one. Are you going to read Troy from Danvers?
No, I was
'Cause
gonna-
let me just read that, because that is emblematic of the
Okay,
problem with this.
all right.
I work in downtown Boston and do a mix of Orange Line and driving, depending on the time of day I have to be at work. But I think for this summer I'll be driving in most of the time now. And if I didn't drive a Prius, I'd be upset. So this guy is
Yeah,
going
Prius.
from a hybrid thing
Yeah.
to totally driving because of the quality of service at the T.
I think you get like 45 miles a
Well,
gallon
whatever
on a
you get,
Prius or
it's
something
still-
like that.
yeah.
Okay, listen to this. This is from someone who rides a T all the time and has adopted a kind of Zen attitude, Jim.
What is it?
If you ride public transportation every day, you have to get to a place of wry resignation, or you will be angry all the time. Humor is the only way for passengers to band together and get home to their family in a fairly cheerful mood. And then this is another texture. Now, I don't drive enough in New Hampshire to know, but this person says, the best visualization is traveling the border of Mass to New Hampshire, or New Hampshire to Mass on 93. New Hampshire, beautiful roads, no potholes, clean medians, right over the border into Massachusetts. You blow your axle, so you trash littering the unkept sides of the road and run into 20 state troopers working a construction detail.
877-301-8970. Tim, you're in Windham. You're on Boston Public Radio. Welcome to the show. Hi. Tim.
Hi, Tim.
Was that Tim from Wakefield?
Oh, Wakefield. Close
Sorry.
enough, Tim. My mistake. Thank you for the call. Hi.
All right, yeah. So I just wanted to say that it's very easy for people to blame politicians for things that go wrong. But the truth is that when politicians offer solutions, if it involves increasing taxes, then the public just gets, overwhelmed, and outraged. And it's just, I don't know. I just think that a lot of people want the easy way to blame them, but they don't really want to pay to really get certain problems fixed.
Tim, can I tell you something?
Yes.
Elected leaders, that's why we call them that, are paid to lead. And if the Democratic legislature, which can override anything that Charlie Baker doesn't like, because they have essentially every seat in the legislature, thinks that there's more money needed in the transit system, then they can vote for more money in the transit system. And I haven't looked at these statistics lately, Tim. The re-election rate of Democrats on Beacon Hill is close to 100%, meaning there is no risk that an angry voter, virtually no risk that an angry voter is going to send you out of office if you do the right thing, even if people aren't happy about it, and adequately fund the services. So I hear you, Tim, and maybe we are a small part of the problem, but nowhere near what elected leaders failing us are. But Tim, thank you much for the call.
Well,
we appreciate it.
You do get overrides in towns across the Commonwealth, mostly for building new schools or for raising certain contracts. So you do get them. People willing to raise their own taxes.
No, I understand that, and I understand that. But what I was saying to Tim, I mean, you heard it, is even if people aren't happy about it, you're not elected to take a poll of your constituents every time. If you believe that this is necessary, then go make the case
to the
people at home.
For the T, we get this all the time, is I live in Sturbridge. I never ride the T. I mean, Boston is the economic engine of Massachusetts. You need the T like every other major city needs a major transportation system. So that's what you have to, to remind people of.
That's stupid. I mean, it's like saying, I don't go out to Western Massachusetts, so don't take care of the turnpike with my tax dollars.
But we
it
get
is a
that
commonwealth.
all the time.
By the way, in all seriousness, maybe because we made light of this at the beginning of this discussion, this is really enraging. I mean, the notion that we not only have an ineffective and unreliable MBTA is bad enough, but an unsafe, a lax culture of safety is a real serious problem, especially the way I introduced this discussion at 11 o'clock. We've had report after... Hey, Jamie, you should try to get David D'Alessandro on the show, the guy who did the report in the aughts, and see what he thinks about the fact that we still have problems. And by the way, I assume Governor Baker's position will be, well, I know it's going to be, they've invested billions of dollars. I believe he says more than anybody else. But to quote Jim Rooney, head of the Boston Chamber, the issue is not inputs. The issue is results. What's the consequence of that spending? And obviously, it's not good enough.
In fairness to Baker, how long has the T been neglected? Decades now,
He's been there 8 years, Marjorie. 8 years.
Yeah, he has been there 8 years. And I would say when I was driving home on Beacon Street every day in the Green Line, what were you seeing? You're seeing people working the Green Line. So it was almost a continual thing during his administration. And I think it was true during the Red Line. But to really fix the T, is the caller talked about spending money, it's going to be billions and billions of dollars. What did they pay for that new line in New York City? It was just a short addition to the train station in New York.
Who's the most popular governor in America?
Charlie Baker.
What is the point of being a popular governor if you're not willing to spend political capital? Do a press conference and say, I know you're not going to like this, but we don't have enough money to do what we've got to do to the public transit system in of Massachusetts.
Well, I think I think the problem is the federal government has stepped away. I mean, as this story points out, the Cape Cod Canal bridges, which are falling apart, which need to be, need to be fixed up. Those are federal bridges. I mean, the federal government needs to step up on many things.
You're being far too forgiving.
Okay, I don't think Massachusetts can pay
record
to fix the T by itself.
So raise money.
Yeah, raise money, but I think you have the federal government help you raise the money. Look at look at the big dig. How much of that was state money?
Very little.
Very
small
little,
percentage.
exactly.
Bob and Holliston, you're next on Boston Public Radio. Welcome, Bob. Hi.
How are you?
We're never better. What's up?
I used to work on the Metro in Washington, D.C., maybe 20 years ago, doing software work. And even back then, it was almost entirely automated. So, that technology's out there. And actually, the only thing that wasn't automated was closing the doors. So if you were to look up at the driver, you'd see the driver looking back to see if people had cleared the way. But I don't really understand why that technology hasn't permeated here yet.
And by the way, speaking of the conductor or driver looking back, one of the criticisms of the T with the dragging death of Mr. Lalene is that didn't happen there. The T has said there was a malfunction of the door, which shouldn't have closed when there was something still in it, his arm or whatever it was. And people who know far more about T safety than Marjorie and I do say the human element that should not have been missing there was the driver looking out to see if anybody was caught in a door, in which case they would not have proceeded to move and Mr. Lalene lose his life. Bob, thanks for sharing your experience. We appreciate it. So do you think, you are generally a more optimistic person than I. What year did I say that the 2009 was the David D'Alessandro report for Governor Patrick?
Right.
That was a mere 13 years ago.
Correct.
When does the T get to the level of performance and safety that it should be? When do you think that'll be?
It's
How's
probably,
never? Is never good for you?
It's probably a decade at least long project, and we're going to have more money spent in Massachusetts and a lot more money coming from the federal government. And we have this real aversion, as we've just seen. We have all these problems that are facing us that are right in our face right now, from climate change to roads and bridges falling apart, to airports falling apart, to infrastructure falling down. You're right. We have spent some money on infrastructure. We'll see how far that gets us. But we've just kind of decided we're not going to fix these things anymore. And it's all over the country, isn't it?
Well, we're fixing some, but not fixing them to the degree that they need fixing. We have time for one more call, and it's you, Brian, in Westwood. Hi, Brian. Welcome.
Hi. Thanks for the time.
Pleasure.
I actually lived in Switzerland for years, stationed there for work, and then moved here immediately after that. Switzerland's not part of the EU, and so their cost of materials is really high, their labor is really high, and yet their cost for putting in rail systems is actually vastly cheaper per kilometer than it is in the United States, and their service is infinitely better than it is in the United States.
Why is it so much cheaper?
I don't understand why we
Brian,
can't have.
Why is it cheaper kilometer for kilometer? Why is it cheaper there? Vastly cheaper.
Well, I actually think that's the big question for the United States to answer. Why is it that our costs always overrun and our projects are never on time when higher labor and higher material cost jurisdictions are actually able to implement better rail systems more efficiently than we are? And I think part of that gets back to your comments earlier about lack of transparency in our public processes. Everything in Boston is a cost overrun. Nothing is done on time, and it's time that there needs to be some accountability for that. We need to start looking at cost per kilometer of construction and asking ourselves some really serious questions. Why is it way more money here? The Swiss are tunneling through mountains. They're going everywhere.
I actually drove through one of those tunnels, like 20 miles long, inside a mountain. That was a great call, Brian. So let me ask you a question before we end this, Marjorie. If we called Joe Pastora right now and said, Brian from Westwood said it's much cheaper, mile for mile, kilometer for kilometer, to build railways in Switzerland, Can you explain to us why it's more expensive here? What do you think his answer would be?
I think he would say, I can have no comment
Exactly.
on
Exactly.
that issue. I will not be getting back to you about that or anything else having to do with the MBTA, even though I'm the spokesperson for the MBTA, which means I'm supposed to relay information from the MBTA management to the public. Not today, not next week, and probably not next month either, Jim.
You know, by the way, we have, I believe, do we have the Attorney General on Friday here at the library? And next Thursday at the library, we have the mayor. Obviously, these will be topics. I mean, a big issue for Maura Healey, who wants to be governor, and for the other three candidates, is what are you going to do about this? And how are you going to make it different? And obviously has huge impact on the mayor of the city of Boston, who will be with us next week.
You know, one last thing.
Sure.
I think about it a lot. When people come here and they land in Logan Airport,
Yeah.
they get to the United States of America, the richest country on earth, and they look around and they think, God, you know, I mean, my little Athens airport, my little Swiss rail system. I mean, we operate in many ways like a third world country, and we're the richest country on earth. Anyway, coming up, we're going to
It's going to be a real upbeat show. So we start with our infrastructure is like a third world country, and we're going to end with Donald Trump's call to Secretary of State Raffensperger looking for 11,000 votes to steal an election.
I like the message from the person that rides the T every day.
What was it?
You know, wry resignation and humor is the only way to get through this, Jim, and that's what I'm trying to do, okay? And anyway, we're going to talk about the Celtics coming up, and even though they didn't win, they did a pretty damn great job during the season. We're going to talk about our sports authority, Trenni Kusnierek from NBC Sports Boston. You're listening to Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH. We are broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library.
GBH's Morning Edition with Paris Alston and Jeremy Siegel.
We have a newsletter called The Wake Up, which is a way for us to not only round up everything that we're talking about and seeing.
The Wake Up is also a place where you can talk to us.
A place for you to tell us about something interesting you've seen around town lately.
We've had a lot of people who want to be part of the conversation, and we want more people to be part of the conversation. You can do that by going to gbhnews.org/The Wake Up.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you. And Boston Children's Hospital, ranked the nation's #1 children's hospital by U.S. News & World Report, where families from Massachusetts and the world come for answers. bostonchildrens.org/answers. And Babson College. You can make your dreams a priority with their part-time MBA. Applications due by June 24th for scholarship consideration for fall 2022. babson.edu/part-time.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Jim Browdy and Marjorie Egan. We're streaming. We're live at the Boston Public Library. I forgot that. We're streaming online at youtube.com/GBH News. And again, a heads up, at approximately 1 o'clock, we will begin live coverage of Day 4 of the January 6th hearings. We're joined now by Sports Authority Trenni Kusnierek. She's an anchor and reporter for NBC Sports Boston, BPR contributor. Hello, Trenni.
Hi, guys.
Hey.
So Jim was just complaining about how downbeat we were today, but we got a couple of really good stories.
We do.
Jim
to talk about. Yes, he was complaining. I know, it's shocking. Never heard that before. But anyway, a great story out in Brookline at the Country Club. The U.S. Open Matt Fitzpatrick. Thank you. You know, a story about the family that took him in and let them stay in the house, about his cat, about the caddy, the whole thing. Tell us about this.
The whole story is really amazing. So Matt Fitzpatrick played in the U.S. Amateur Championship at the Country Club in 2013. So that was, 9 years ago? Yep. So he would have been 19, I think.
Or is he 27?
He's 27.
So
is that math right? 18?
A teenager, yeah.
A teenager, 18 years old. Yeah, great math over here. So he would have been 18 years old, and because it was the U.S. Amateur, the parents put him in a hotel, and then all of a sudden he makes it farther, I think, than they think they did than he would, and his hotel reservation runs out, and so his parents are frantically looking for someone to take him in. So it's the Fultons, I believe, is their last name.
Yeah.
Fultons, yep. The Fultons take him in. They like move their 4 kids around in their house, and the parents like kind of move around, and his brother Alex is there also because his brother Alex is his caddy. And so he stays there and he wins the U.S. Amateur. And it then strikes up this friendship between these two families, one from England, one from Boston. You know, and the Fitzpatricks end up becoming like fans of the Boston Red Sox, and they really like Boston. And they become like a second family to the Fultons. And so when Matt Fitzpatrick won the U.S. Open, he's, by the way, the only player to win a U.S. Amateur title and a U.S. Open title on the exact same course other than Jack Nicklaus.
Really?
Whoa.
Yes.
Wow, I did not know
It's
that.
very rare. And so he just,
Is he a Trump supporter like Jack Nicklaus too, or no?
I don't know.
Okay,
So
fine.
what is-
My guess is probably not, because
Probably
he's
not.
like young and stuff.
Yeah.
So let me ask you something. What is so great about the country club's course that allows it to have these major tournaments there?
Well, I think, one, it's an iconic course, right?
Yeah.
It's called the Country Club because it was the first country club in the nation. But I didn't know this, Marjorie. They actually had to completely reconfigure the country club's golf course because the fairways aren't long enough. The holes aren't long enough for what the pros are used to. And so they have like a 9-hole course and they also have an 18-hole course, and they had to like sort of like move holes around and do it so that they would have pars that were long enough. It was a very tough course. The greens were really fast. They had to grow in extra rough and stuff on the side just to make it more of a challenge. I mean, you saw Colin Morikawa, who was leading or within
after 2
striking
rounds,
distance
wasn't he, or
after 2
something?
rounds.
Yeah.
I mean, he shot like an atrocious score. I want to say he was 3 or 4 over par on Saturday, had a tremendous day on Sunday, and still finished just short. But, you know, this came down to the 18th hole. Will Zalatoris, who was also in a playoff for the PGA Tour Championship. Yes, he was just in a playoff a couple weeks ago against, now the name is escaping me, who won the PGA Tour Championship.
Whoever, yeah.
Super, like, great young kid, you know, kind of an up-and-coming.
Yeah, that guy.
Yeah, that
Okay,
guy,
fine.
up-and-coming. Another good story. I think we talked about it on the show. But he was in a playoff with him as well. He was. Did you watch the end?
Yeah, he missed a putt.
Oh my God, the putt he
We
missed.
have sound of it. You want to hear it?
Yeah, yes.
Here it is. The final seconds. Matt Fitzpatrick's win is dependent upon this Zalatoris guy missing this putt, which is really close. Here's the announcer.
So he's left a crack in the door for Zalatoris. And Matthew Fitzpatrick is a champion again at the country club in Brookline.
That's pretty dramatic.
I mean, it was like, you know, I know unless you're watching me on YouTube, you can't really see. It was centimeters, right?
Yeah.
It was so close. It like took just the left edge of the hole. Now, had Zalatoris made that putt, they would have gone to a 2-hole playoff. So Fitzpatrick still would have had an opportunity to win. But there's 2 other really great stories about Matt Fitzpatrick winning. So one was he was 5 strokes off the lead going into 4 or 5 strokes off the lead
This
going
the brother
into Sunday.
story?
Yes.
Oh, I love this.
And so his brother Alex, who is also just
great.
turned pro and golfed at Wake Forest, still lives in North Carolina. He was like, my brother's so far off the lead, he has no chance of winning.
Goes home.
So he goes home to North Carolina. He flies home to North Carolina. And I couldn't totally understand from the Globe article, like exactly when he realized his brother might have an opportunity to win. But he like hopped on a plane and hopped in a car and like drove out to Brookline and got there. He was on the edge of the green, you know, to celebrate with Matt Fitzpatrick as he won his first major tournament. And then the other great story is his caddy has been caddying for 40 years. And I thought it was really cool. So when they won, the caddy broke down and cried in relief. And Matt Fitzpatrick was like comforting him and like congratulating him. Billy Foster
Listen to this line from Fitzpatrick about his caddy. The thing you mentioned is from the Globe. I can't tell you how much it means to Billy. This guy just won the Open. This is Fitzpatrick talking. I know it's something he's wanted for a long, long, long time. Almost made me cry. It was really beautiful.
It was beautiful. It was unbelievable.
Because he's a professional caddy.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, he's caddied for the likes of, like, I think Justin Thomas, I think Tiger Woods. Like, he is caddying for some of the greatest golfers and people who certainly have had an opportunity to win a major. And he's just, it's like, listen, it's big for a caddy to win a major because of the payout that you get, but also it's you're helping them shot selection and, what are you going to use a driver? Are you going to use a wood? Like reading the putts and reading the greens. Like you're not just out there carrying a bag. You are an integral part to their success.
I feel
really an amazing story.
In the spirit of full disclosure, and I'm going to do this briefly, and I will not take any questions. So that's where it stands. After we were prior to the opening, you and I were ridiculing the country club as we are wont to do. And a friend of ours who shall remain unnamed called me and said, "Have you ever had dinner at the country club?" And I said, "No, they're never letting me in for dinner." He said, "Well, I happen to be a member. Would you like to go to dinner?"
Would you like to take
and he invited me to dinner. The dinner was wonderful, by the way, ended by peppermint ice cream, which is a specialty there. And the only downside, but I overlooked it because it was such a great experience, they said I could leave as soon as I finished bussing all the tables. And that was really fast. But in all kidding, the porch off the dining room is right next to the 18th green. And let me tell you, I don't know what about golf. It is so beautiful.
It really is.
It is just incredible.
It is a beautiful like I said, I've only been once, and I was in a Target swimsuit and a Target cover-up at the pool with friends of mine who belong there. Actually, my friend who belongs there, she must have volunteered and was like kind of high level, because when they took a shot of Matt Fitzpatrick doing his post-win interview, she's like right off to the side. I was like, Shannon, you're so fancy. But it is really beautiful. But I did also see a very cool story about an immigrant who started working at the country club decades ago and created a drink, and he's now like the head beverage director, and he's still there. And so, as much slack as we give them for being a little bit snooty, and they probably wouldn't let me in because I have visible tattoos if I have short sleeves on. I might not be country club born and bred. There's a legacy there, and it's beautiful. And they have I didn't know they have a skating rink.
The dinner thing was great. The staff was great.
They have
the
a
whole
curling
thing
club.
was great.
It is, and you know what? They have one of the only female, their first GM, first female GM in
who
history.
came up through the ranks forever,
yes,
right?
Worked her way up. And their groundskeeper. Did you see their groundskeeper? No. At the end, I think because of how they had to
the groundskeepers.
How they had to reconfigure the course, the USGA gave him an award that had not been given out since the early 1900s. What they did to that course, and again, Keegan Bradley is a Vermont native. He's a New England guy, so obviously he loves playing in Boston. But there were so many rave reviews about playing in the Boston area, and that what the country club did, and the way that they presented. It's a major undertaking that players really like playing in this area, and they want to come back, and hopefully we see more majors take place here.
Which is one thing I did notice on the Boston College Reservoir, there were all these gorgeous buses. I've never really seen buses that look quite like that. They were the buses that transported people to the country club, and let me tell you, they were country club level buses.
Well,
we're not fooling around here.
Last week when I was here, we saw fancy town cars out here and
for
SUVs.
For
the open, because they're probably staying at the Lennox, and so they go and their financial institution is on the side. And I was like, man, I want to be a rich person.
Okay,
the whole thing is very high end.
I have a complaint to make about you and your colleagues. Well, not you, because I didn't see your comment on this, about your colleagues in sports media. But first, here's Jason Tatum, who obviously is the star of the Celtics, who did not have a star-like final series. He's responding to a reporter's question the other day about why the Celtics, what they could have done to do better, obviously, in the final series.
Just our level of poise at times throughout this series and previous series, myself included, we, taking care of the ball, things like that. But it's easy to, look back and see and say all the things you could have done better. We tried.
Here's my point. The sports media, and I know this is generalizing, so feel free to eviscerate me for saying it, are treating this 24-year-old who has basically been the driving force behind the team as if he is a mass murderer. I mean, I cannot. No, seriously, the talk about this guy. He had a bad series. He had great games before. He was fabulous all season. Are you part of the problem?
I'm always part of the problem because it's my industry, right?
What'd you say about him?
So I said that they need more from him, but I was a little more willing, to say he clearly was worn down. Obviously, what we saw from Jason Tatum, in case you've been living under a rock or you just don't follow any sports at all, the Celtics were in the NBA Finals against the Golden State Warriors. They lost in 6 games. They had a chance with 4 minutes to go in Game 4 to go up 3-1 and take a commanding lead, and they fell apart, and then they lost Game 4, Game 5, Game 6. They had not lost 3 consecutive games since December of 2021. That's the kind of run they went on the second half of the season. And Jason Tatum, who is their star player, first team All-NBA, just wilted in the. He was not effective. He had the most turnovers ever in the NBA playoffs. He had over 100. But I will say this, and a lot of people will point to it, that Larry Bird only averaged 15 points, and in his first NBA Finals, the MVP was Cedric Maxwell.
Oh, I knew it was
not Larry Bird. And so,
well, because he's young. What is he?
24, and he'll be
24.
and he just turned 24 because I think he turned 24 in March, so he'll be 24 for all of next season.
And I think he was exhausted. I mean, all these stories post the playoffs are saying they have no bench. So they had to keep playing these guys constantly, right?
They have no bench. He also, remember, last year the season was still affected by COVID, so they played later into the year. He then immediately went to play in the Olympics for Team USA.
I forgot about the Olympics, right?
And then they started training camp. And listen, I go 2 ways with Jason Tatum. One, when he's not named All-NBA, or when he finally was, he was like, oh, day late and a dollar short. Well, if you want to be All-NBA and you want to be a superstar and you want to be mentioned in the likes of LeBron and Jordan and Kobe and all of these guys, then people are going to look to you and they're going to have very high expectations
That's a fair
of
analysis.
you in the finals.
Yes.
That's what I said, but I said I can also understand that you cannot look at the NBA finals, especially the fourth quarter, where Jason Tatum at times was front rimming like little floaters, was airballing multiple three-pointers. Like, that's not all of a sudden, it's not like Jason Tatum all of a sudden forgot how to shoot a basketball. Jason Tatum didn't have his legs under him. So I'm a little bit more willing to say this was a growth process for him. He needs to learn to win. But he also, I think the team needs to learn how to manage him properly and put the pieces around him so that he isn't at 24 years old completely gassed in the NBA Finals because you need your legs.
And also Steph Curry, who was just unbelievable to watch. He's 34 years old.
And he wasn't gassed.
Well, but if you notice, there were long stretches where he would sit on the bench in the second half of the game, sometimes 3, 4, 5 minutes, which I know to us is like, what can you possibly get back 5 minutes on the bench?
Your
but
breath.
Yes, you gave yourself a chance. Like, all of that little rest adds up. And the reason they were able to do that is because Andrew Wiggins could shoot the ball. Jordan Poole could shoot the ball. Klay Thomas had a good game. Draymond Green didn't shoot the ball well. Otto Porter Jr. at times. Like, they had a number of guys. Like, basically for the Celtics, if it wasn't Jason Tatum or Jaylen Brown, everybody else shot the ball terribly. Derek White was nowhere to be seen. Peyton Pritchard completely disappeared. They were horrible. Their bench was horrible. And that's something Brad Stevens spoke to the media this morning, and he admitted that. They need to find more playmaking ability, and they definitely need more consistent shooting coming
Marjorie,
off
I'm going to sit on the bench for 3 or 4 or 5 minutes during the Jared Bowen segment, and so I will come back.
I'll try to rise to the occasion. I'll try to carry the
crescendo.
mantle. It won't be easy.
We're talking to Trenni Kusnierek.
So Trenni Kusnierek, when I was a young reporter, I remember going to one of these domestic violence men's group things, and I remember coming away from it thinking so many of them were charming and handsome, and you could never believe that they did what they were convicted of doing, so that was why they were in that domestic violence group, a big therapy thing. This Amy Kaufman story, she's the ex-wife of the sports writer Jonah Carey, wrote about her experience with domestic violence. And the big point of the story is this guy was a beloved sports writer, had a great career, wrote all these books that people knew him, thought he was a great guy. Nobody could believe that he could do these things. Want to do our little back
Well,
and
let's
forth
get
reading?
Trenni's thoughts, and then we're going to talk about this incredible juxtaposition in this piece of the abuse of her, and minutes or at most a day later, how he's being his charming self doing stories. But give us your thoughts first.
So part of the reason I wanted to pass on the story, one, is because I think it sends a very important message about how often it is hard for people to believe victims simply because you're like, oh, I know that guy. He's really nice.
Exactly.
I knew Jonah Carey very well.
You did?
I did. I worked in
I didn't
baseball
know
for the
that.
first 8 or 9 years. For 8 or 9 years, from year 3 of my career until probably year 10 or 11. I worked for the Brewers, I worked for the Pirates, and I worked for Major League Baseball Network. I have a signed copy of a Jonah Carey book at home. I would see him everywhere. He was funny, he was smart, he was nice. When I saw the first story come out that he had been arrested and imprisoned for domestic abuse, I was like, Jonah? Sweet Jonah, who was always so nice and everybody got along with him. And then you read, and she, to Amy Kaufman's credit, right before their wedding, he headbutted her and threatened her life. And she said the reason she married him is because she thought if she didn't, he would kill her. And I think it was her best friend's husband, came to her. This is an incredible anecdote. Came to her, and his wedding gift to her was $1,000, so that would pay for her to go see a lawyer when she got the courage to leave him. And to Amy,
that's what he said to her when he gave her the $1,000.
That's what he said to her right before her wedding. Yeah. And the reason Amy Kaufman continues to speak out, and credit to the judge in Montreal.
Yes,
the judge was
But here's
great.
the other.
Well, explain why.
So the judge in Montreal sentenced him to 21 months in prison. And unfortunately, the way that laws work, whether it's here in the United States or in Canada, when you are accused of domestic and convicted of domestic violence, if you have no prior record, again, if you're seen as this otherwise upstanding citizen, he's eligible for parole already next month. In July, he's eligible after
But he did send him to jail despite all these letters of recommendation saying what a wonderful guy he was.
That they could not believe it was this person.
Yeah.
But the other part of the story that really stuck out to me that I didn't know until reading, if you want to read the story, by the way, it's in the Los Angeles Times. When they first started dating, and I've been reading a lot about this, it's called love bombing, right? So you show this tremendous amount of affection and attention to a woman and sort of to lure her in. And early on, he moved for her. He told her she didn't have to work anymore, that he could support the both of them. He wanted to know where she was going, who she was going to be with. It was from the beginning an unbelievable amount of control. But to Jim's point, too, so he's doing all these things behind the scenes. He's biting her. He's punching her. He's headbutting her. He's physically and emotionally abusing this woman. And then, so she has like a very detailed
Let's do a
record.
few of these. Let me
I
read
don't
one,
have
Marjorie.
it. Yeah,
Here it is. September 23rd, 24th, 2018. Mr. Curry bites Ms. Kaufman in the face.
And then the next day he's on his podcast or whatever, his broadcast, saying how the Braves went from the MLB laughingstock to 2018 NL East champs, being jocular and charming.
October 17th, Mr. Curry then holds Ms. Kaufman by the head, headbutts her in the nose. They hear a crack, and Ms. Kaufman yells he has broken her nose.
And then he has on October 17th post, hey, Clayton Kershaw's margin for error is all but gone in Game 5. Might be his toughest postseason test. It goes on and on and on like this.
Can I return to the judge for a second? I think this, I'm glad you touched on this. This judge basically said, I don't give a damn what you all say and how you know him in the world in which you knew him, Trenni Kusnierek, and the outside world where he's charming, etc. That has nothing to do with the credible evidence about what he did privately to this woman. You know, even if the sentence was not what it should be, he did send him to jail, which I think is pretty significant here.
And one of the other factors the judge said played into his decision was the fact that Jonah Carey did not receive and did not seek out any sort of treatment or counseling until the charges were pressed against him. And he said, obviously, you were not remorseful until you were caught. So this isn't a remorse about what you did. It's about a remorse of having your public persona completely ruined, and now you're trying to fix it. So basically, the judge says, I don't believe you. I don't believe that you will never do this again.
And may I just stick in, too, because you hear the same thing about people that are accused of sexual harassment. Other women in the office will say, well, I worked with him for years. He never said anything to me. That has nothing to do with whether he said something else.
Exactly.
No matter how handsome or charming, how funny they are, they're often very compelling people, and they do these kinds of things.
I'm really glad you brought this story to our attention.
Yeah,
it's really huge.
It's a great
Thank
story.
You.
Trenni, thank you very much. Trenni Kusnierek is an anchor and reporter for NBC Sports Boston. Coming up, we're going to talk to GBH Executive Arts Senator Jared Bowen about upcoming arts and culture events in Greater Boston. You're listening to Boston Public Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH, and we are broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library.
It's not over yet. More smart conversation about community issues is up ahead with Jim Brady and Marjorie Egan on Boston Public Radio. Right after a news update from NPR. Stay with us here on GBH 89.7.
Support for our programs comes from you and Johnson & Wales University, helping to prepare graduates for impactful careers using a collaborative, interdisciplinary approach to learning. You can explore more at jwu.edu. And Tools of the Mind, the research and play-based curriculum offers pre-K and K teachers tools designed to help ensure children develop cognitive, social, emotional, and self-regulation skills. toolsofthemind.org.
I'm City Hall reporter Soraya Wintersmith, and you and I are listening to 89.7 WGBH. WGBH HD1 Boston, online at WGBHnews.org. Boston's local NPR.
Ahead on Boston Public Radio, we're live today at the Boston Public Library. So augmented reality art plants computer-generated 3D images in real-life studio spaces at the Boston Cyber Arts Gallery. We'll get the full story from GBH's Executive Arts Editor Jared Bowen on that, and a very different kind of 1776 at the ART about whose independence the Declaration of Independence did not declare.
Bill Burr might be the funniest person Canton has ever produced. He's cementing his now national legend status by becoming the first and only stand-up act to play Fenway Park. He'll zoom in to us at the BPL. Then at 1, we'll air live audio from Day 4 of the House Select Committee hearings on January 6th. All that to come, Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH.
Live from NPR News, I'm Lakshmi Singh. A new U.S. Supreme Court ruling that Maine's tuition assistance program must cover religious schools stands to affect institutions in more than half of all U.S. states. NPR's Barbara Sprunt reports the ruling was 6-3 along ideological lines.
The court said if a state uses taxpayer money to pay for students attending non-religious private schools, it has to also use taxpayer funds to pay for attendance at religious schools. The decision effectively invalidates provisions in 37 state constitutions that ban the direct or indirect use of taxpayer money in religious schools. In her dissent, Justice Sonia Sotomayor wrote she believes this is another step in the court dismantling the wall of separation between church and state. She wrote, quote, "The consequences of the court's rapid transformation of the religion clauses must not be understated." Barbara Sprunt, NPR News, Washington.
The House Select Committee examining the January 6th attack on the Capitol last year will hear more today, this time from state officials who faced off against then-President Donald Trump. NPR's Claudia Grisales reports it's the panel's 4th hearing this month.
Georgia Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger, his deputy Gabe Sterling, and a former election worker from Fulton County, Georgia, Shay Moss, will testify in person. Trump accused Moss and her mother of false claims of election fraud, forcing both into hiding. The panel will also detail former Trump Chief of Staff Mark Meadows' role in the Georgia pressure campaign. In addition, the committee will present videotaped testimony from other states, such as Michigan and Pennsylvania. Arizona House Speaker Rusty Bowers will detail for the first time the pressure he faced from Trump and his lawyer, Rudy Giuliani. Claudia Grisales, NPR News, Washington.
Russia may be on the verge of capturing Severodonetsk. NPR's Greg Myrie reports the city is key to the Russian military's campaign to take eastern Ukraine.
They really only have one part of the city. They're holding the Azot chemical plant. It's a big chemical plant in the city. About 500 or so civilians are also holed up with these remaining Ukrainian fighters. The Russians have been hammering this city relentlessly for weeks, slowly advancing, and now they've basically got the Ukrainians down to this plant. The region's governor says Russia is also pressing an offensive in surrounding regions. This is the center of the Donbas region and really the focus of the Russian operations.
NPR's Greg Myrie. Attorney General Merrick Garland has made an unannounced visit to Ukraine where he met with that country's top prosecutor. Garland pledged U.S. assistance with war crimes investigations and help with the prosecution of Russian soldiers accused of atrocities against Ukrainians since the Russian invasion began in late February. This is NPR News.
Good afternoon. With the latest from the GBH Newsroom, I'm Henry Santoro in Brookline. The search for a new Boston school superintendent took a big leap forward today with the announcement of 2 finalists for the job. The Boston School Committee says they are Mary Skipper, who is currently the superintendent of Somerville Public Schools. She's in her 7th year of that job, and before that, she was network superintendent of high schools for Boston Public Schools. The second finalist is Dr. Tommy Welch, Region 1 School Superintendent, K-12 for Boston Public Schools. In that job, Dr. Welch supports 15 schools that serve over 7,000 students across Charlestown, East Boston, and the North End. Public interviews for Skipper will be held on Thursday. Public interviews for Dr. Welch will be held the next day on Friday. And the Woods Hole Science Group has landed a $41 million grant to better understand the thawing permafrost in the Arctic and its impact on climate change. Sue Natali with the Woodell Climate Research Center says scientists know that thawing permafrost is releasing greenhouse gases, but they simply don't know exactly how much.
You know, projected permafrost emissions, say by 2100, may be on par with a country like Japan. And even if we're thinking, oh, that's the low end of permafrost thaw, that's a country. You know, that's a country, and this is a country of permafrost that we're not even considering.
Natali says the hope is to impact policy to find climate solutions. The project will also be studying the thawing of the Arctic and its impact on the natives that live there, at the idea of creating a model to help others adapt to climate change. This is GBH News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Progressive Insurance, home of the Name Your Price tool, so drivers can see coverage options at Progressive.com or 1-800-PROGRESSIVE. Price and coverage match limited by state law. And the listeners who support this NPR station.
Hey, it's Jim Browdy. I am Marjorie Egan. You're listening to Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH. We are broadcasting live, as we do every Tuesday and Friday, from the Boston Public Library. And I should also add, because I do forget, that we are streaming online right now.
We are?
Yes, we are, Jim.
Where?
At youtube.com/GBH News.
And let me just tell you
We're
what's
over
coming
right
up.
there. You can wave.
At about I'm not waving. In about 20 minutes, Bill Burr is going to join us.
Yes, he is.
He's going to be at Fenway, first comedian ever, later in August. And at about 1 o'clock, and actually they're pretty prompt, I have to say. At 1 o'clock, day 4 of the January 6th hearings, we'll bring to you live. But coming up, no, actually, he's not coming up anymore. He's actually here.
He's here.
GBH Executive Arts Editor Jared Bowen joins us now. He's not coming up to talk about the arts and culture events around Greater Boston. Hello, Jared Bowen. Well,
so I'm here. I've arrived.
He's arrived.
And his mic is now on. Nice to have you, Jared Bowen.
So Jared Bowen, let's start with this augmented reality thing that's going on at Boston Cyber Arts. This sounds fascinating.
This is fascinating because this is art at its most democratic. So this is presented by Boston Cyber Arts, but it's curated by Michael Louie, who is a local artist. And he was inspired by this guerrilla art exhibition effort a few years ago at the Museum of Modern Art in New York, where they created a virtual reality, augmented reality, I should say, exhibit within the museum walls. So it plays out here in your neighborhood, actually, Marjorie, near Jamaica Pond.
Yes.
And that whole area. What you do is you download this app called Hoverlay, and you walk out and you have a map, and you have to be in specific locations near Ward Pond and Jamaica Pond and along these pathways, and you hold your phone up, and suddenly you start to see things that aren't really there in real life, but you can see them through your phone.
I had no idea. This is unbelievable. That sounds
yeah.
great.
It's very, very clever. So it's called Alpha 60, and he took his inspiration, Michael Louie did, from this French 1965 film called Alphaville, where you have this supercomputer which takes over this town, and suddenly free thought is outlawed. You can't control your thoughts. So there go your artists, your poets, your writers. And so he has created 3 pieces for this that kind of give you this narrative as you see who lands, and you see the ooze that comes out, and you follow this. But there are another number of other artists, including some of the artists who participated in the MoMA effort a couple of years ago who have created these pieces, and some of them are just absolutely staggering. You turn up the volume on your phone, and you can hear this herd of lumbering animals.
I love this.
And it's not just that you hold your phone up and you look there. You spin it around, you turn around, you hold your phone up, you see things in the sky, you tilt it down on the ground, and you can see things there. There's one, I think it's a pair of French artists who created something that is evocative of a 19th century peep show. And so you see the little box that you would peer into, but then you get closer with your phone again. This must be, by the way, hilarious for anybody who's just walking by wondering why you're contorting yourself in all these different angles looking at your phone. But you peer into the box and you can actually see what's in the peep show box as well. So the great thing about this is it doesn't cost a lot of money. You don't have to get the public art permits to do this. You just gather a group of artists, you have a conversation about what you're doing, and it's created.
So let me ask you a stupid question. How do they do this?
You think he's going to ask him to explain Bitcoin? I mean,
I did a fairly good job about that.
Yeah.
Actually, you did not, but that's okay.
Yeah.
Well, it doesn't matter because it's going to be non-existent.
That's right.
In about 2
Yeah,
weeks
really,
anyway.
it hasn't gone well. Cryptocurrency.
But no, it's all through digital programming and software development, but it's all artists who have taken how they work, whether it's in textiles or oil painting and other forms, sculpture, and translating it into these new digital forms.
So you can sit there in your house and see this whole thing.
Well, no, you have to go there.
You have to go there.
You have to be in a specific location.
I misunderstood.
Yeah, yeah.
I thought you could do it from home.
No.
You've got to go to Jamaica Pond.
So the good thing is it gets you out in nature and you're walking around, but you have to be in very specific locations. You do have to, it's at points, I walked around with Michael Louie, and at points we thought we were in the right spot, but you have to maybe walk a few feet to the left, and then suddenly there it is.
And how do people find out about this again? It's, what is it, Boston Cyber Arts?
Presented by Boston Cyber Arts.
So you just Google that and you'll find what the deal is. Okay, 1776 at the ART. A very different kind of 1776 from what I understand. Tell us about it.
Yeah, so this is the classic musical, made very unclassic in this case. It was made or released in 1969, so it's 53 years old. Kind of an interesting bit of trivia here is that it was released the same year as Hair, which was also directed in a revival form by Diane Paulus, who is the co-director of the ART of this piece with Jeffrey L. Page. So right away from the opening here, you understand that this is going to be a very different 1776, which, by the way, sets us down in Philadelphia, that hot, hot summer when you have all of the founding fathers gathered in the hall to craft a Declaration of Independence for which they need unanimity to declare independence from England. But you see a group of women and non-binary artists, actors, step to the stage, get out of their regular shoes into their buckled shoes, roll up their socks, and all of the entire cast here is not played by the white men you would expect to be playing the Founding Fathers, but again, all female or non-binary identifying artists. So I'm of two minds of this production because it's interrogating, of course, the events of 1776, but I think we have a different prism through which to see this now. One, we've seen this through Hamilton with different kind of casting. New Repertory Theater did this a couple of years ago. And so I felt like the directors here were kind of at times skirting to find something to sink their teeth into, because this is a 53-year-old show, and at times it does feel its age. However, when we get to some of the big numbers around slavery, these are the powerful moments in the show, which then they have a motif to carry us through the rest of the show. When you understand how close the Founding Fathers were to abolishing slavery in the Declaration of Independence, but for the southern states and South Carolina, it didn't happen.
But that is the focus, my understanding, just so I'm clear on the new 1776, is for whom independence was not declared. I mean, that is the focus
But
of
it's
this?
the same material. So this was
What
my
does that
issue
mean?
with it. It's the same material. So it's the same show you would have seen in 1969, but through the voices now of again, non-white male actors.
So what do you think of it? I'm not quite clear.
I thought the directing was terrific. I thought the cast was phenomenal. I thought these numbers that looked at slavery and how that then carried through and you really understood the ramifications were terrific. But at the end, I also walked out of the theater thinking it would be great to just see a musical from the point of view of the people who weren't allowed in the room at the time. So the women, people of color, rather than visiting this old musical.
And this thing is going on this production is going to Broadway, from what I understand.
It's
and
already
going on
confirmed.
and it's going on a national tour afterwards.
Yeah, so this is your chance to see it now. So there's so much to admire and value in it, but again, I think we're in a time I can't just say let's create a new musical because I know the effort and it takes years of development to get a new musical off the ground, but it made me want to see that show.
Okay, it was tough for this too, is that Hamilton is all fresh in our minds, and I think anything about the founding fathers, it's going to almost pale in comparison because that was like the Mount Olympus of things I've seen in the theater in my life. I mean, it's to recreate that or even
tough
come
act,
even
as
close.
they say.
It's a tough act to follow. Yeah.
It is. So with that in the environment, it can be a little challenging.
Why are you so tan?
I was on vacation last
you were?
week.
Where were you? Can I ask you where you were?
I was in the tropics of New Hampshire.
You were?
Yeah.
And you look like that?
Well, it was a sunny week last week.
Wow, you look fabulous.
Yeah, you picked a good week to be on vacation, Jared Bowen.
Yeah.
We're talking to Jared Bowen, Executive Arts Editor at GBH.
So tell us about this one. I guess we don't know how this turns out. They leave you hanging at the end, but the light at the lyric stage?
Yeah, this is one of those shows you absolutely want to see. I was totally enthralled and absorbed just from the first moment. So this is a two-hander where
is two-hander?
Two-hander is two actors, throughout this very tight 65-minute play called The Light at Lyric Stage Company.
65
Oh, that's my kind of play. 65 minutes and you're out of there.
No, if it could be 45 minutes, you'd like it even
better.
more. But 65 is not bad.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
But it's playing through June 26th. By the way, 1776 is playing through July 24th. But in The Light, we find this man who the lights come up and the music is going, and he's just at pains to run around this apartment and get it all set because clearly something special is happening. And it turns out his girlfriend has come home, and this is a special night. They're celebrating 2 years of being together. First of all, these two actors, Dominic Carter, who plays Rashad, and Yewanda Ototoyembo, who plays Genesis, just have this fabulous chemistry. He's a firefighter, she's a school principal, and they're coming together and they're having this great conversation. Part of the conversation is how she's troubled by somebody in her school, one of the teachers, who is not supporting Christine Blasey Ford as they watch the Kavanaugh trial. Well, flash forward in this play, and he, I don't think he gives too much to say. Their relationship involves, he wants to celebrate. He's gotten her tickets to see this great performer whom she loves, but she's on the bill, this performer is, with a male performer she does not agree with. And suddenly there creates this divide in their relationship. She has personal information about this male performer, about how he was abusive toward women. Rashad can't necessarily understand her lack of support for this man who's done so much good in the community. So as they begin to have this divide over who this male performer represents, they're going deep into their own experiences to come at this, and it becomes just raw and emotional and tough in the conversations about the day and what their lived in experiences as two African American people are. And I was left at the end, I think if I hadn't had, I don't know what stifled me at the end, but it's the first time I've ever felt this in the theater. The lights went down. Marjorie, as you said, there's this ambiguity at the end. I wanted to shout out. I actually wanted to exclaim.
Yeah, what happens?
Yeah. That's where I was left.
Yeah.
I was so engaged in this piece.
Yeah, because that's what you're wondering. Are they going to stay together or break up, right?
Yeah.
And you don't know. I hate when that happens.
We have a little sound from that, by the way.
I want to know, are there going to be wedding bells or are there not going to be wedding bells,
How'd you feel about, was Tony Soprano killed? Was he not killed? What
well,
happened?
Well,
Did you care about
just
that?
like you, Jim, I hated it at the beginning.
And love it now.
But then I really
because
loved
we're
it.
still talking about
okay,
it.
so
And by the way, he died.
Here's a little, no, by the
I think
way,
he did
David
too.
Chase says he did not die. So there's the
He
end of
didn't
that.
say that.
He did say it about a year ago.
I thought he left it unclear.
Can someone check that out, please?
Okay,
Here
he
is,
was shot in the head but survived.
Whatever. No, he wasn't shot in the head. What am I talking? Oh, here's some sound from the Boston Lyric Stage Company's The Light. Here it is.
What privilege! Black men have the highest rate of imprisonment, dropout rate.
That doesn't mean you don't have privilege in relation to black women.
We cannot have privilege when we're at the bottom of virtually everything in society.
Actually, black women are at the bottom of virtually everything in society.
See, you're making this about black men versus black women.
No, Rashad, I'm calling out your privilege.
No, I'm thinking about the ramifications for black men.
Again, the black man is the focus.
That is what I am.
By the way, are theaters, we haven't spoken to you in a couple of weeks, are theaters filling up a bit, or people, is the discomfort that a lot of people felt about going into a room with a lot of people they don't know less than it You and I went to Mockingbird. The place was packed in a
that
big
was packed.
theater, was it not?
I don't think it's still come back in the way that we need it to come back. And so
People wearing masks in theaters?
Oh,
or-
absolutely.
They
Masks are still required. In most theaters, proof of vaccination is still required
That's
as well.
so good. I'm glad they're doing that because you're so close to somebody, even if it is only a 65-minute play, you're still right next to people, right?
You are,
Yeah.
And I know a lot of the theaters in fact, they worked with Harvard, the Chan School of Public Health, to outfit their theaters in the best way possible through air filtration. Jeffrey Allen, right? He's that great guy there who has worked with theaters.
Joseph Allen.
Joseph Allen.
He's
a
brilliant.
passionate
At Harvard.
arts and theater lover
he's
himself.
amazing,
So
yeah.
he, in fact, with the ART, they developed a guideline, Healthy Frameworks guideline.
Yeah.
For
You know,
theaters.
you may not like this, but because you're a real arts person kind of thing. Instead of listing shows in a list like the best shows there are that you go see, what if we listed it based on how long they are? As opposed, I mean, shouldn't people like me who have a hard time sitting through 2.5 hours at least have an opportunity to make a decision based upon length? No,
That's
I guess
the way,
not.
you know, I once on this show that I said I don't want to spend one more second in the theater that I have to, and a friend still makes fun of me for that. You're like, you're the theater lover who says it. It says theater lover who says this, but no, my point is it should be as tight as possible, and sometimes that is just too long. But other times, like The Inheritance at Speakeasy Stage Company, which we talked about, 7 hours was worth every last second.
Okay, wait a second.
Now, hold
wait
on.
a second.
Hold on. This is very
I
important.
don't accept this. This is.
Did you read what our staff just
Unfortunately,
sent us?
I did. Why don't you read it
This
out
is
loud?
not The Sopranos, isn't it?
Sopranos creator David Chase has officially confirmed in an interview with The Hollywood Reporter that Tony did, in fact, die at the end of the series
I'm
finale
sorry.
in 2007. Wow.
Well, that was from E! Online 21, which is when I read it. And the New York Post says, after a decade plus of refusing to explain the final scene, he referred to it as Tony's death. Well, I mean, I think all of us know David Chase is lying. I mean, I think he may have been the producer and the showrunner or whatever.
Who was it? The guy that went into the bathroom?
Yeah,
like in
of
the
course.
Godfather scene?
Yes, the
so
guy
the
went
guy
in the
that went into the
bathroom.
bathroom and came out, he was the one?
Yeah.
And Meadow was still parking the car, so she didn't get there
How
in
the hell
time.
do I know? I don't know what she
Was
was
How
doing.
stressful was that, by the way?
So they got shot right in front of.
By the way, this has totally ruined my
AJ.
day. There's enough to ruin my day already with the Trump hearings and the
So
tea.
so the two kids were sitting there and his wife.
No,
Camilla.
not two kids. Meadow was parking
Meadow was
the
coming in.
car.
Well, she was
Yes.
coming, opening the
She
door.
was.
She
That's
was
right.
opening the door,
That's
so she
right.
probably
'Cause she
saw
had
her
finally
father
parked, yeah.
get shot. Yeah, the parking scene was great. She's backing into the car behind her, then she's hit the car in front of her, then she's backing into the car. Oh my God, I'm very upset about that.
I'm really
Why were you
upset.
so insistent that he lived?
Because I was assuming, I thought I had read exactly the opposite, and that's why maybe you should do your research, Jim, before you open your big pie hole and tell the world what's going on. So another performance. The title is "Wild Negro is Love." Is the title? Tell us about this.
This is it's an exhibition actually that's happening at the Cultural Equity Incubator, which is located
Where's
at
that?
the Midway Artist Studios in Fort Point.
Okay.
They're a new group who has come together just during the pandemic, doing really fabulous work. From what I glean in talking to them and visiting with them, this is a space where we've seen so much focus on BIPOC groups over the last couple of years, and a lot of attention paid, and a lot of people are supporting, and there's a vibrancy that's now happening. But when you spring up like this, you have so much attention, and as they say, when so much is expected of you as well, there can be growing pains. So this is a group, the Cultural Equity Incubator, which serves to be a support system for these groups, and they do everything from the exhibition that I'll talk about to offering advice about insurance and permitting and legal advice.
Really?
Things that artists don't necessarily have the bandwidth for or a huge expertise in, but here in this location, they can supply that and help that.
And
they-
smaller productions can't afford to
Exactly.
cover every. That's great.
Exactly.
That's really great.
Yeah, because they don't
What's
have
it called again?
The Cultural Equity Incubator.
Okay, go ahead.
Because they don't have the B school background to be able to do this. So one of their first exhibitions is called, well, Jim just gave the title, but it features the artists Cliff Notes and Jay Pix Belmer. And Belmer has taken these photographs of Cliff Notes, who is a very fast rising star in Boston, has been named the 2018 Boston Music Awards Best New Artist. He's been named, they have been named Musician of the Year.
Wow.
And so you see this progression of photographs where you kind of see this exasperation in Cliff Notes, and as you move forward, suddenly they are a figure that's embossed in gold, which represents, as the panels beneath tell us, are luxury and sophistication and quality and prestige and all these grand things. And so you see the progression of this artist and this figure. And it's also about documenting this time and space and interpreting this world. So there's so much that's happening in a very small staff at this, again, CEI, Cultural Equity Incubator. I just think it's fabulous what they're doing, and they're having an open house this Thursday and a closing reception for this exhibition on the 23rd from 5 to 6:30.
Now, Jared, we have a very important question coming in from Kyle on YouTube.
What is it?
He wants to know, where does Jared Bowen get his shirt? It is
It's not
a
a shirt.
very nice shirt.
I mean, it's a white. It's a white
I don't
shirt.
know. Kyle on YouTube likes it very much.
Okay.
Well, Jared also always looks fantastic.
Yeah.
He puts things together. I rather like the belt, actually.
Oh, thank
Jared, I
you.
was going to say the belt is very attractive.
What can I say, if I may, since you brought, if you had time to take a week off and lie in the sun in New Hampshire, you'd probably look fabulous. Not that you don't, too.
Yeah. No,
Where-
my
where do
rule
you
of
get
thumb
a
is to wear the same thing every day, Jim. You know that.
You have anything to say about this?
Wait, what?
Okay, fine. Now, before you go,
I actually didn't hear it, Marjorie.
So it doesn't matter. Something is happening.
I said it's very important. I said that
not
my
very
rule of thumb is to wear the same thing every day. That's
It's
what
not
I
your
do.
rule of thumb. How many events have we been to together? I didn't bring this up. How many events have we been together since we started working together a quarter century
But that
ago?
was in 1996. So that was a long time ago.
I will tell you, we've probably been to 100 public
Uh-huh.
events together. How many different dresses have you worn to those 100 events?
Maybe 3.
Maybe 2. Maybe 2. And by the way, they are, in all seriousness, I'm raising my right hand. They're beautiful and
They're
they look great
beautiful.
on you.
That's right.
But 2 dresses for 100 events is a little odd, if I may say.
Tiffany Haddish is doing the same thing.
What does that mean?
Wearing the same dress to a bunch of different award shows.
Well, here's a quiz.
Yeah.
Here's a
yeah.
quiz. How many times does Queen Elizabeth wear even her favorite outfit ever? She gets an outfit. I really love this outfit. The Queen, the old Queen, the 90-plus-year-old. How many times does she wear that outfit? You answer first.
Once.
How about you?
That would be my guess.
Exactly.
As well.
She never wears. I can't believe I know this. She never wears an outfit.
Well, where does
2
it go?
times. What?
I
Tiffany Haddish actually takes them in.
I think the question
Or
is.
they turn them into placemats at the palace.
But here's the question with Queen Elizabeth: does she have more than one pocketbook? I mean, don't you wonder? You never see Queen Elizabeth, even when she's in her own living quarters in the Buckingham Palace,
Exactly.
without her little pocketbook by
And
her
the
side.
corgis, and the
and
2
you say to
corgis.
yourself, what has she got in there?
Yeah.
I mean, maybe she's got her lipstick, but she's in her own house, so you figure.
She doesn't need cash for that many things.
Doesn't need cash. Doesn't
She's
need her
got a
wallet.
flask for
doesn't
sure.
Need her, could be a flask.
Yeah.
But she always has her little pocketbook. And if someone is there interviewing, she always has the prime minister in. And she's outlived all these prime ministers. I mean, she was welcoming Winston Churchill way back in the
Yep.
day, and now she's interviewed all these prime. They all come to her digs, and she sits there with her purse.
Well, I think I have read that the purse is kind of a signal too.
What does
if
that
she
mean?
shifts or picks up the purse, then they know
It's time to go?
It's time to move
I
on.
love that. Is that really true?
Yeah, it makes me want to carry a
Jim,
purse. If I
you
pick
should
up the
try
purse,
that
it's
for the
like-
theater. The signal will be when Jim Brady picks up his purse. It's
Time to call
for
it
the
quits.
curtain call.
So we only have a minute or two. Do you want to talk about what's at the Addison Gallery? Can you do it in a couple of minutes?
I can.
Go.
The show is called Past is Prologue. It's on view through July 31st. By the way, the Addison is free. We love to point that out. So is the
Yes.
Cultural Equity Incubator exhibition. But Past is Prologue is a very interesting show that, kind of tying back to 1776, it takes contemporary artists looking at past events in history. So Sally Mann interrogating the battlefields of Gettysburg. The opening piece is something fascinating, something I didn't know. It's by an artist, an indigenous artist, Nicholas Galanim. And you might know that the Hollywood sign used to be called Hollywood Land.
I did
you
not
know
know that, no.
No, I didn't.
So I had learned that years ago.
I don't care that much, but go ahead. I really don't.
Well,
But
you're
go
going to
ahead.
care more now, and this is what's so
Why?
interesting
What
about the
happened?
show. So it's called Hollywood Land
Hollywood
because
Land.
it was selling real estate development.
Oh.
So in the Addison
Still
show,
don't
you
care
walk
that
in, the first thing you see is a big sign featuring, it looks just like the Hollywood sign, but it says Indian Land. Why? Because Hollywood Land was for white-only development.
Oh, that is pretty good.
So we
Oh,
have,
that
how
is
long
pretty
have
good.
we looked and kind of loved the Hollywood sign for all it represents? Well, that's actually what it was tied to. So here, throughout these gallery after gallery, you see this fabulous show of artists looking back at history and interrogating
Sandover,
it.
right?
Yeah.
Addison Gallery. So are you doing something Friday night or whatever?
We
What are you doing?
are.
What are you
We
doing?
have the artist Leslie Dill
Yeah.
and
You forgot who his other guest is.
Somebody's coming.
Let me just say this one thing. One, Jared has no idea who's on the show on Friday, which is not atypical. And number two, I don't buy this BS that David Chase says that Tony Soprano died. We're going to revisit this next week.
We are going to revisit.
I don't care what he said.
Double-sourced it.
Double-sourced it. Absolutely.
So
right in the head, right between the eyes.
Good luck with your show, and I really hope before Friday you figure out what the other half of your show is about. Jared Bowen, thank you very much for joining us.
This got dark.
Thank you.
It got very dark. It got very dark. But you know what?
We gotta go.
I agree with Kyle on YouTube. The shirt is great.
Bill Burr is
shirt
waiting.
is great.
Thank you,
Oh my God.
Okay, go
We
ahead.
have to talk to him.
We do.
No offense, Jared.
I'm out of here. I'm vacating.
Thank you very much. We have been speaking with Jared Bowen. He's executive arts editor here at GBH. Coming up, we got a big star here, local boy, coming back on Zoom. Comedian Bill Burr joins us on...
Burr, yes.
Burr, that's what I said.
Burr, you said.
I didn't say Bohr. I
Yes,
said
you
Burr.
said Burr. It's
Bill
Burr.
Burr.
Yeah, Bill Burr.
Bill Burr joins us on Zoom.
He
He is
did.
next on 89.7 GBH, Boston Public Radio. We are broadcasting live as we do every Tuesday and every Friday from the Boston Public Library.
Support for GBH comes from you and New England Dental Group, committed to helping you stop hiding your smile by offering a variety of dental implant solutions to replace missing teeth in one of their 7 locations. Learn more at newenglanddentalgroup.com. And Lexus Broadway in Boston, presenting Wicked, returning to the Citizens Bank Opera House June 8th through July 24th. Ticket information and availability online at lexusbroadwayinboston.com. And Maine Maritime Museum, presenting Zach Horn, Looking for Winslow Homer, an installation inspired by the same rhythmic beauty of the sea captured by Homer, June 25th through November 27th, mainemaritimemuseum.org. And Boston Children's Hospital, ranked the nation's #1 children's hospital by U.S. News & World Report, where families from Massachusetts and the world come for answers. bostonchildrens.org/answers.
Back in Brighton, is Bill Burr ready, by the way? Yes or no? Yes?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Okay, so how are you, Mark? Oh, welcome
I'm
back to
very
Boston
well.
Public Radio. We're live from the Boston Public Library. I love when they don't tell us if the guests are ready. Streaming online at youtube.com/GBH News. And in exactly 29 minutes, we will move to Washington for day 4 of the January 6th hearings. I think it's well, they're all important days. This is a big one, talking about the efforts of Trump to overturn the election, pressure officials in Georgia, Arizona, and we're going to hear testimony from this election worker in Georgia. We'll talk to you more about that in a few minutes, whose mother and she herself had to go into hiding because of death threats they got after being accused of something they didn't do, perpetrating fraud, according to the then president of the United States. So it's at 1 o'clock.
The violence level is being accepted now, I guess. We have the whilst we're waiting for Bill Burr, we have the ex-governor of Missouri that did that, appeared with that rifle, saying that he was going to
Go hunt out rhinos,
some
Republicans
rhinos.
in name only.
Yeah,
He's the guy who had to drop out of an earlier race because of his sexual misconduct, so he's a really good candidate to be doing this kind of thing. Could someone at some point maybe tell us what's going on? No Bill Burr yet. Okay.
He's on the phone with
So
his
let
people.
us tell you a little bit about, while we're waiting for Mr. Burr here, what is happening this afternoon. Why don't you look for your notes, Jim, and then you can tell us what's happening. The Speaker, all Republicans yet again, which I think is a really brilliant strategy by this committee. The Speaker of the House in Arizona, we'll talk about pressure that he rejected that was imposed on him. Brad Raffensperger, who's practically become a household name. You know who you voted for in the election in 2016? Donald Trump.
Yeah.
And you know who savaged him after he refused to, quote, find him 11,000 whatever number of votes that he needed to win? Brad Raffensperger, and his number 2 will testify about those efforts. There's going to be testimony about this effort in 7 states, thanks to this crackpot lawyer, John Eastman, and theoretically directed by Donald Trump, according to the committee, to put fake electors in place in 7 states won by Biden, but the electors would say there was fraud, and as a result, we're voting for Donald Trump, even though in some cases, like Michigan, I think the margin in Michigan was more, I think it's Michigan, was more than 100,000 votes, and yet they're doing that anyway. Now, I see Bill Burr's face. Does that mean he's actually there? Okay, so we'll get back to the hearing in a few minutes. For the first time ever, a stand-up comedian will headline Fenway Park this summer. The funniest guy out of Canton, Massachusetts, since Paul Revere at least, that's Bill Burr. You know him from numerous comedy specials, Paper Tiger, Walk Your Way Out, I'm Sorry You Feel That Way, Netflix's F is for Family, a film, The King of Staten Island. He'll be at Fenway, which has got to be terrifying. We'll find out on August 21st. He joins us now. Bill, welcome to the show.
How are you?
How are you?
We're good. We're good. We're very thrilled to be talking to you, Bill.
You look like you're napping a little bit. Is that unfair or no?
No, I've been doing calls for like 4 hours.
That can do it
Oh
to
my
you.
goodness. Oh my goodness. Well, we'll try to make this one the one you remember, Bill,
We will.
forever. I know you're not a big fan of NPR, but we'll get to that in a second. Before that.
When did I say I wasn't a fan of
Okay, well, here it is.
We got you right on the record
Since you
here.
said it, here is Bill Burr. He took the bait, Marjorie.
He took the bait.
From an episode on his podcast 5 or so years back. Here's
That's
Mr.
right.
Burr. Here it is.
I was listening to NPR, right? Well, my wife was listening to it, and I was tolerating it. I like some of the music, but just like their politics, it's so childlike to just be sitting there leaning all the way to one side. It's just like, really?
Oh, I stand
Nobody
by
with
that,
the
but I'm
blue
not saying you
tie
don't have good music.
does anything wrong.
We're not
Everybody
done yet.
with the red tie is an asshole. It's like political racism. In a
So
way.
welcome to the local outlet of National Public Radio, Bill Burr. It's great to have you.
Well, what are you, above criticism?
Yes, we are above criticism. Thank
Oh,
you
that's
for
right. I
joining us.
forgot. You are NPR.
That's
We
right.
are, exactly.
Finest of
Bill-
all. You're those people that call like 40 of the states flyover states.
That's right.
And what
That's
is
right.
wrong about
They're
that
not
exactly?
smart enough for my Crocs that I'm wearing. Yeah, there's an
Yeah.
arrogance to NPR that needs to be made fun of. I stand by it.
Okay, there we go.
Hang on, buddy. Hang on. I'm on the phone.
It's good
Okay.
he's focused on this discussion. Do you have
Well,
anything you want to say to
no,
Mr.
but
Burr here?
I'm a little nervous because you're a big star. You are
He is
from
a big star.
Canton, and I know
I'm not
you.
a big star. I am a bald ginger.
A
so
bald
I
ginger.
get in where I fit in.
Well, let's get to that ginger thing because I know that you have a thing about. I mean, I come from a family of redheads. Thank God I didn't get it myself. But I
What
know
do you mean I have a thing of? I don't have a.
you taught. I read where you say that the ginger hair. Oops.
This is
Are we
going well,
losing
I
Bill?
think.
People have a thing about it.
Okay. Did ginger-haired guys have trouble getting the girl, or what's the deal with that?
No, that wasn't true though.
That
It was
wasn't
just
true?
I had a complete lack of confidence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
So it's not. We're not going to see Ron Howard melting down in Fenway Park.
No, it's gonna be fun. I feel like you read a bio of mine like 9 years ago.
I did. I read several. I listened to your podcast. I know you got a new truck, and that's great. I know you're a big hockey fan, and that's
Why
great.
couldn't you bring that up? You go back into the archives where I trash you.
Because I want to prove to you, Bill, that we NPR people are trying to do our homework. You know what I mean?
by the way, there are 40 flyover states, though, since you brought it up. So can we get back to this concert?
There aren't. Name them.
Alabama.
Wrong.
Okay. Now, actually, I know you like Alabama. That's for another day. So can you talk to us about this?
Why
Fenway-
don't you like Alabama? Because you listen to a Neil Young song?
That's exactly right. That is exactly
There you go.
right. And by the way, I got off
Southern
Spotify.
man with your-
Oh my
I
God.
love how Northern whites put all of the crap that white people have done on Southern white people.
Exactly.
That's right.
Exactly. Now, can
Yeah.
I ask you about Fenway or no?
Of course you can. I want to thank you for taking time away from your thesaurus to dumb it down for me today.
Now, Bill Burr, in all seriousness, Marjorie and I, in a
What?
former radio station, took listeners to the first concert ever at Fenway. Do you know who
That's
that
right.
was, Bill Burr?
Motley Crue?
No, it was
guess.
It was Bruce Springsteen. So you're sort of the Springsteen of comedy. Are you not terrified by doing this thing on August 21st?
First of
Honestly,
all, Bruce Springsteen has to go on stage with like 11 other people.
that is
all right?
correct.
I don't want to hear that.
Yeah. Gonna go out by yourself.
I'm not the boss. I'm the self-employed.
Yeah.
So are you nervous about this or not, Bill Burr?
And I'm not trashing Bruce Springsteen.
Oh
We have a
gosh.
connection problem.
He's going
For
in.
all
He's going out.
You
Wait, say that.
liberals.
Oh,
Your heart's broken.
Okay.
I thought I was liberal till I listened to this station.
Exactly.
Jeez
That's
Louise.
right.
So are
That's
you
right.
nervous about? You're doing this with Tony V, right? Is that correct?
Yes.
And are you nervous or not? Yes or no?
No.
Why not?
Because they're not telling me go out there and sing the national anthem. They want me to go out and tell jokes. That's what I do.
Yeah, but here's my take on this thing. I looked up how many people live in Canton. Do you know how many people live in Canton?
No.
23,000, which means there are going to be 10,000 more people in the stands than live in your hometown staring at you. That's not intimidating at all, Bill Burr?
No.
That's it?
No, I mean, I started off with 8 people watching me that moved to 18. It just was gradual steps. If I had to do it, go from an open mic to that, it's not like they're going there to root against me. I have the jokes. They're going to be happy.
Yeah.
It's going to be fun. Like, why would you go into that gig terrified?
Because you got to stand up in front of all those people. That's why.
You know what's amazing? Bill Burr is one of the most successful comics in America, and he can't afford a good internet connection. Is that unbelievable? Try that again. We didn't hear you. The internet broke down.
Oh, all right. Well, why are you blaming on my financial situation there? You limousine liberal.
That's right.
That's the nicest thing anybody's ever said to me, actually. We were hoping to have Larry Tribe on today, but he was unavailable. So
I hear the "I'm better than you" tone in your voice.
No, actually, this is exactly the opposite.
I just want to thank you for taking the time out of your day of book reading to talk to a moron like me that went to summer school.
Well, by the way, you're welcome for that. Thank you for saying that.
I imagine you flew over my school plenty of times on the way to some book signing.
Yeah.
Actually, I have. Were you there when I did that?
I went to a flyover school.
You went to a flyover school.
So, Bill Burr, Tribe couldn't come, so let's work with you on this thing. Is Donald Trump guilty of a crime, yes or no?
What? Well, I don't know. What am I, the FBI? I don't know what he's... Listen, I gotta be honest with you. I don't pay attention to any of that stuff.
You don't?
No.
Why not?
Because what is paying attention of it done for you? Other than make you write in capital letters on Facebook.
Yeah. Get very upset. That's what it's done.
Where does it get you? It's like literally you can poison the food supply. You can fill the ocean with plastic.
Yeah.
You can have a 20-year war.
Yeah. To
try to steal oil. Nobody gets in trouble, but a stand-up comedian does the wrong joke and it makes front page news. So, I mean,
who are
the
you
whole
upset?
thing is, it's rigged. It's rigged.
In the stand-up world, who do you feel has been treated most unfairly in terms of what you were just saying? Did we lose him again?
Oh, we're losing him again.
As far as what?
You seem to be talking about cancel culture.
Listen, I'm not losing you guys. I hear you guys fine. Maybe it's on your end.
It may be on our end. So who?
Maybe it's time for another. You guys need to have another benefit. Raise some more money.
We're really good beggars here. We beg really well.
We call it pledge, Marjorie. We don't call it begging. Thank you very much.
I pledged to you guys.
You
do?
did? Oh
Yeah.
my goodness.
When was that?
I don't know. The last time you guys were whining about money that I was paying attention.
We do. It's a sad state of affairs, but we do have to whine
I
for
like
money.
NPR because it annoys hardcore conservatives.
Yeah.
So I like seeing people get annoyed.
Yeah.
So that's it. But I do believe if anybody watches Fox News or CNN, you're a moron.
Oh, yeah? What do you watch?
Nothing.
Nothing?
That's not true.
You don't
That is
watch-
total BS. That is not
You
true.
don't watch
What do you
other,
watch?
Oh, I thought you meant as far as like watching the news.
No,
Yeah,
like,
what do you watch?
Like, what do you watch, like, for TV? What do you like?
I like the Heroes and Icon channel.
Yeah.
I like the Center Ice package.
Center Ice package.
I like the MLB package.
Yeah.
I like the NFL season ticket, whatever they call it.
Yeah.
I like F1. I like MotoGP.
Okay, that's enough. Can I, speaking of the MLB package, I was watching.
Was that enough? Did that make your brain hurt?
That was
It
good.
did.
That was
But
good.
I have to say, I'm going to pay you a compliment.
What do you like? What do you like listening to Neil deGrasse Tyson? Don't you think if that guy was actually as smart as he was, wouldn't he be talking to other scientists? I think other scientists tell him to shut his yaps, and now he's going to mouth-breathing morons like me who went to summer school, and we're all sitting there like, well, this guy's really smart. Like, when does he do the science?
Yeah.
All he does is sit around talking about it.
You know, by the way, despite all this talk, this self-deprecation or whatever, trying to compare yourself to the elite, me at least, I don't know about Marjorie, didn't you go to Emerson? You're an Emerson radio kid, are you not?
Yeah, I went to Emerson. When did that become Harvard? Dude,
Okay.
the math requirements was adding fractions.
Yeah.
I went there in the early 90s where both dorms were like a fire trap, and I commuted. And I paid for my own education.
Okay, fine.
Yeah.
Now, can I get back to something nice about you? I was watching you on
Wait
Kimmel.
a minute.
Yeah.
You just tried to dig, and you lost, and then you acted like I switched the topic.
Exactly.
To that. All
Exactly.
Right. Oh, wait. Can I get back to what? You can get back to whatever you want to. I'm going to talk about what you bring up.
Okay, so I'm watching you on Jimmy Kimmel. I knew you had thrown out the first pitch, but I hadn't seen the video. You threw like a perfect curve for a strike. How shocked were you by your own deal? I mean, you had to be, right?
It wasn't a curve. It just ran out of velocity. So it looked like it dropped off the table. That was gravity.
How thrilled were you? Tell the truth. Raise your right hand. How excited were you by that, really?
Oh, yeah, I was totally thrilled.
Yeah.
I was totally thrilled. I just went out there, but I mean, it's not that big a deal. It's just everybody's looking at you, but you're just playing catch. He's
kidding.
just a little farther away than playing catch. So you just throw it at his head, and by the time it gets there, it'll be around his stomach, and it'll look good.
Yeah. So I know you're big into hockey, but everybody's been talking about the Celtics, of course. You want to weigh in on the tragic?
I don't have the emotional maturity to watch my team in the NBA Finals with my kids around, so I didn't watch it.
Yeah.
Did you really not?
You got upset, you mean?
Well, I had to choose between. You keep driving that. Did you get upset? I'll get
Yeah.
upset for you at some point
Okay.
during this conversation
Okay.
to make you feel happy.
Okay.
No, it's just I feel like the NBA
God.
is.
Yeah.
I don't think it's fixed. I just think it's really massaged to get the highest raise. I just feel like the officiating crew dictates the pace of the game. It's the only game of the four major sports. The players dictate the pace. In the NBA, the referees do. And it's just and they have temper tantrums and they tee guys up and then they're jerks to them for 5 games in a row until the player comes and kisses their ring. I just think they're just egomaniacs. And I don't know if the league tells them to call it that way, but it just gets frustrating when it's early in a playoff series and somebody's up 20 and they've already won a game. The job of the ref at that point, he's going to put the other team into the penalty. It just happens time and time again. I said it was fixed in the 2000s. Everybody said I was a moron. Then they literally had a mobbed up referee who
That's true.
it's not funny. It's ridiculous. And what kills me is this is how crooked the NBA is the Lakers count that title. And there's a mobbed up ref who went to jail for it and said he fixed the Sacramento series, and the Lakers still waved that banner, and the NBA doesn't care. You go to MLB, Roger Maris has an asterisk because he played 3 more games than Babe Ruth for the rest of his life. It doesn't make any sense to me. So I just feel like it's one of the most beautiful games, the best athletes, but the way that the referees insert themselves, it's just I can't watch it. I had to make a decision.
What was
I
the
want to be a
question?
good dad.
What was the question you're responding to? What was the question?
I was asking about the Celtics.
Oh, Celtics. That's right.
Yeah. So Bill Burr, may I ask you something about Canton?
I really didn't like that passive-aggressive comment. Go ahead.
Okay. Okay.
You really think you're clever, don't you?
I do.
No,
well,
she's talking.
not
He's
you,
talking
the
to
other
me,
guy.
not you.
The other guy thinks he's
No.
clever.
The other guy. That would be me. That's
we
correct.
we haven't played my blooper reel for you, Bill, and we're not gonna either.
You
but
play
let me tell
Cards
you.
Against Humanity. Go ahead.
So I want to know about Canton. You grew up in Canton. You're a famous guy now. I know you said you went to summer school and all that, but I mean, they're going to bring you back for the graduations. They're going to bring you back for the distinguished alumni kind of thing, don't you think?
No, not if you saw my transcript.
No, but
I am the last person.
Yeah.
What would my message be? See, school doesn't matter, kids.
But Canton had to be part of what's here now, right?
I don't understand the question.
Well,
What is the
the
question?
Canton Experience. I grew up in Fall River. A lot of me is about
Fall
Fall
River
River.
to you.
You grew up
Fall
in Canton.
River. Oh,
Yeah.
oh,
Yeah,
geez, Louise, you made it out.
I did. But you.
Once the Whalen dried up, That place got a little shady.
That is correct. I was not pregnant on graduation day, and I was very grateful that I was not.
Well, wait a second.
But come on.
Wait a second. You were not pregnant on graduation day. What was the state of affairs of every other cheerleader?
Lots of people were pregnant on graduation day.
Every
But we don't
cheerleader except you. Is that true?
Not everyone. Not everyone.
It's
Several
called
of them.
getting it out of the way.
That's right. That is right. But
That's right. You have your kid graduate from high school when you're 34, and the rest of your life is yours.
That is correct.
So we have to wrap this.
We do? We're out of time?
Well, we got to introduce the hearings in a minute. Do you want to make a pitch about your being at this is like history on August 21st. You know that?
Yes, I do. Hey, so is Trump, is that tax evasion thing? Are they finally going to get him on that?
No, that was a couple of years ago, by the way. But that maybe they'll get him on that too, you know?
Yeah.
What are they trying to get him on this one for?
Something about rigged electors.
Something like stealing the election kind of thing.
Stealing the election kind of thing, yeah. Yeah. And these
the thing that happened at the Capitol.
Yeah, that thing and the thing after the election.
But you're right.
And
you know, you do get worked up about it, and I'm with you.
Drone bombing the wedding. Oh, wait, that was the other guy.
That was the other guy.
Yeah, that was the other guy. But that's all right. He wears a blue tie.
That's right.
So, do you want to make to you too? Do you want to make
moving right along?
Do you want to make a pitch for August 21st or no?
What do you mean make a pitch?
Do you want to tell people how extraordinary their evening is going to be if they go to Fenway on August 21st or no?
I think I've been demonstrating that. Well, I've handled you two eggheads effortlessly.
That's right.
Over the last 25 minutes.
Yeah.
Huh? What's it like to get outwitted by the guy from shop class? I'm kidding. I sucked at shop class too.
That was your summer school, huh? The shop class, remedial class.
We're doing a reboot of The Breakfast Club right now. You're Molly Ringwald. I'm whatever, the guy with the big nostrils, and I don't know who you are. Brian Johnson.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
I want to be
There you
Molly
go.
Ringwald. That's good. I like that very much.
Hey,
I'll
Bill
take that home
Burr,
with me
this
today.
may be shocking, but this is a pleasure to meet you. Thank you very much for your time. We really
Hey, I had a
appreciate
good time too, all right? Now, don't
Yeah.
get all liberal and say that your feelings were hurt and try to cancel me.
Don't
My
worry.
feelings were hurt
Never
a little bit,
happened.
but won't try to cancel you, I promise.
All right, well, if your feelings were hurt, I did it on purpose.
Thank
I stand
you.
by
Okay.
everything I said. I'll
Very
see you
good
guys
to
at
meet you.
Fenway.
You will. Bill
Thank
Burr,
you very
thanks so
much.
much.
Thank you very much. We've been speaking with Bill Burr, and later this summer he's going to become the first comedian to perform at Fenway Park. His show, Slight Return, is August 21st, and you can get tickets at billburr.com/tour. Okay, we're going to have the hearings up just in a couple of seconds here down in...
We're going to take a break, and then we're
we're
going
gonna
to
take
try
a break.
to sort of,
The
set a
hearings are
foundation
in
for
Washington.
him.
We are at the Boston Public Library. We are not in Washington. The hearings are in Washington, and we're here holding down the fort at the Boston
are.
Public Library. You were listening to 89.7 GBH Boston Public Radio.
Funding for our programs comes from you and Sengenics, a precision medicine company working to improve patient outcomes through the discovery of autoantibody biomarkers. Sengenics.com. That's SENGENICS.com. And Lexus Broadway in Boston, presenting Wicked, returning to the Citizens Bank Opera House June 8th through July 24th. Ticket information and availability online at lexusbroadwayinboston.com. And Weco Hospitality. Weco cooks and delivers chef-prepared dinners every day. No subscription necessary. You can visit wecohospitality.com to see their weekly menus. And See Plymouth. Plymouth is a New England escape where visitors can see Plymouth Rock, watch for whales, and dine on seafood. From a town brook sunrise to shopping in the cultural district. More on the See Plymouth app. Brought to you by visitma.com.
Trusted. Local. News. This is 89.7 WGBH. WGBH HD1 Boston. Online at gbhnews.org. Boston's local NPR.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Jim Browdy and Marge Regan. We're live at the Boston Public Library. A lot of monitors, by the way, if you come on down. We're streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. I believe we're maybe less than 10 minutes away. If they've been pretty prompt in the past hearings 1 through 3. The first hearing was postponed 45 minutes, but then they were on time for day 4 of the hearings. You'll hear them to the conclusion on National Public Radio, Boston Public Radio, as in me and Marjorie. We will be with you until 3 o'clock, at which point, if they continue, we'll throw it to NPR. So please stay with us. And if there's a break in the hearings, as there has been on other days before 3, we will take your phone calls, and we'll take your texts throughout, by the way, what your thoughts are. Here's what we know about today's hearing. It is primarily focused on the effort of Trump and his people to try to intimidate state officials to throw out certified results of elections in their states and declare victory for the Trump campaign. There's going to be discussion, Marjorie, about the fake electors that Mr. Eastman and purportedly Donald Trump tried to have put in place in 7 states, meaning fake electors who would have pledged to Donald Trump and be counted by Mike Pence on January 6th, even though the state's voters picked Joe Biden. We're going to hear from leaders like Mr. Raffensperger, the Secretary of State from Georgia, that infamous call. In fact, let's play that right now, if we can, for a second. Here's just a snippet of what I think was an hour-long call with Trump and Georgia's top election officials. This is on January 2nd of 2021.
So, look, all I want to do is this. I just want to find 11,780 votes. So what are we going to do here, folks? I only need 11,000 votes. Fellas, I need 11,000 votes. Give me a break.
Someday someone will tell me how that is not a crime, that in and of itself. Brad Raffensperger is number 2. He's a Republican. I believe his assistant is too. They will both testify about the pressure they felt they're under. The Speaker of the House in Arizona, same deal. He will testify. And as I've said a couple times during the show, the testimony I am most interested in hearing is from an election official in Georgia. She and her mother had to go into hiding.
That was horrible.
Because Trump accused them of engaging in election fraud. They had death threats. So we'll find out what the threatened violence and actual violence has meant to people who were just trying to do their jobs, making sure that the elections were as free and fair as this election actually was. The witnesses are currently walking into the hearing room, so my assumption is we are just maybe 2 or 3 minutes away from the formal gaveling into action of the hearing by Chairman Thompson from Mississippi.
You know, you really wonder when you read these stories about these election officials being harassed and death threats and having to leave their homes and stuff, what this is going to mean for election officials in 2022 and 2024. I mean, why would you even want to do that? It's like these public health people that have been so brutalized during COVID. Why would you do that? And especially since you know, we're not talking big money, and some of these people are volunteering. So what's it going to be like in these close states? Your home state, Pennsylvania, is a very close state. Do you want to risk being attacked online and have people threaten you and your family and that sort of thing? I mean, this used to be shocking to us. And I remember years
One incident like this would be shocking to us. It is everywhere. If you don't agree with the Trump agenda and the notion that Donald Trump was the victor in 2020, then there's a fairly decent likelihood that this kind of crap, this potentially deadly crap, will be visited on you. It is really frightening.
You know, I mentioned before that the ex-governor of Missouri has this commercial where he's standing with a long gun. Eric Grittens, I think his name is, standing with a long gun and threatening to go hunt for rhinos, people who are not, in his view, Republicans enough in terms of their opinions. He's got this, and he's got these guys that look like military guys standing behind him. It's kind of, we're going to come get you with our long guns. It's really kind of crazy that people think that that's okay. And I thought, you know, they've played over and over again on television, Texas Senator Cornyn up before his party getting booed nonstop.
Why is that?
Because he's making teeny tiny changes in gun laws, which are basically around the edges. They're not the big things at all. It's not about these weapons of war, as people have come to call these long guns now. It's not about high capacity magazines. It's about, you know, saying that boyfriends who have been convicted of domestic violence should not be getting guns. It's like they've become the party. You know, you hear a lot of Republicans talking about crime in the cities. Crime in the cities has to do with lax gun laws outside the cities. You know, so they're the people that are contributing to the crime by not in Boston. You can go to New Hampshire, in Chicago. You can go right outside the state boundaries and get guns. I mean, the reason we have so many guns in the cities is because of lax gun laws outside the cities, right? The cops are for gun control. They talk about how they're on the side of the cops. Well, cops are for gun control, and they're not. So anyway, it just seems like things have gotten really extreme.
Well, you also mentioned before that one of the two Republicans in this committee who's not running for re-election from Illinois, Kinzinger, talked on one of the weekend shows about how he got mail at his house saying that the mailer was going to kill him, his wife, and his 5-month-old kid. And you say to yourself, if you really believe in, this is your point before about election workers, how about elected officials? If you're a person of principle and aren't going to just toe the party line, but occasionally going to vote or speak your conscience, what kind of crazy person would decide to get into public service and run for office rather than do some other job where you'll be safe and low profile? I mean, it is a horrible environment. And people were critical of Kinzinger saying on the show, this is not over. There's going to be violence in 2024. And if this continues on the same trajectory that it has, and there are not consequences for any people, forget Trump for a minute, Eastman, any of these people, Ginny Thomas, who essentially is an insurrectionist as far as I can tell, and apparently the committee has invited the wife of Clarence Thomas to testify in front of the committee. I don't think there's a resolution yet. Unless there is some consequences for this insurrectionist and occasionally violent and often threatening behavior, then it's, to me at least, an invitation to continue that kind of behavior, don't you think?
Yeah, no, I do. You know, I remember years ago when things started heating up in the abortion battles, you'd hear these physicians that were working, doing abortions at Planned Parenthood, how their names and addresses, and indeed, some of them did get murdered, but their names and addresses were out there, and they were wearing bulletproof vests to go in and do their job, and you thought, wow, this is really gone over the top. But now it's almost like common.
It's the way business works.
Yeah, it's the way business works. Do we have time to take any calls here or no?
I don't think so. I mean, it's 1 o'clock.